Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining us. I have Mark S.A. Smith, the Bija Company, bijaco.com. All right, Mark, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Let's talk making money.
Let's do that. High consideration decisions versus low consideration decisions in sales. Let's bring that out.
You bet. One of the biggest challenges I see in business today is using low consideration sales methodologies for high consideration sales. What's the difference between high and low consideration? It's pretty simple. Low consideration is where we have one person making the decision and they don't have to check in with anybody else. And if they screw up, they don't have to explain themselves to anybody else, which pretty much describes none of the things that most of us sell to other people. And a high consideration is where you're going to have multiple people who have to say yes. This happens often in a corporate environment, or where if you screw up, somebody's going to come after you. Now, the basis of this concept is simply this. In the world of corporations, the only way you can make lots of money is through promotion. Okay. Now, the 2.5% per year is not going to cut it, so you have to get promoted. The only way you can get promoted is by illustrating on a regular basis that you can deliver intelligent, smart, and capable decisions. You got to be able to have be seen as a smart decision maker. So any kind of thing that you do that tarnishes your image of being a good decision maker kills your probability of a promotion.
Exactly. Okay.
And the reason why is because no executive would ever promote to their inner circle somebody who might embarrass them because it tarnishes their vision of making good judgments, of making good decisions. And this happens all the way up the food chain to the chairman of the board. So what happens is when we sell things to people where it's below their signature level, and this happens frequently in the world of corporations where you have a budget to spend, and as long as it's below that a certain threshold, you can write a check and you can buy it. Or you can write a PO and you can buy it. Above a certain threshold, well, you got to go get other people to approve, typically a CFO for the financial component of it, or CEO for the business case component of it. Well, what happens is that each of these other people have a very different vision of what creates value in the marketplace. And so if you go and you sell, for example, to an IT person or a manufacturing person or an HR person or a salesperson or a marketing person, and they have to get approval, well, what those people are going to say yes to is going to be different than the rest of the team. So the person you're selling to has to think about, okay, so how do I sell this up the food chain? And how do I satisfy their needs? And that creates an extremely long sales cycle.
Yes, I'm familiar.
And so the more people that are involved, the longer the sales cycle gets. But I want you to think about this differently. I want you to consider that as a consideration cycle, not a sales cycle. Because if they consider it to be low risk, if everybody involved considers this to be low risk, it's a fast yes. But if it's a new concept or a new vendor, the risk increases substantially. And therefore, our job in the world of sales is to reduce perceived risk. So anytime we have multiple people involved, we got to reduce the perceived risk for each one of them. And even if it's within your signature authority, you still have to reduce the perceived risk in case somebody says, how come you bought that? And when things go wrong.
Now, I can connect the dots on what you've said, but there may be some people out there that are wondering the mechanics about taking a high-risk situation, you're new, and turning it into a low-risk, low-consideration situation.
Great. That's a really great question. Well, there's 7 fundamental ways to do it. Let's talk about 4 of them just right off the bat, because they're the ones that are the most powerful. Number 1 is proof. You got to prove that you can do it. And you can do that through case studies or proof of concept. You just have to make sure that whatever you offer as proof is absolutely relevant and in context to what they do. For example, if you're selling to the world of finance, you can't use a transportation example. They can't make the leap. They can't make that jump. So proof is really important. Second thing is progress. Every time they have a conversation with you, you got to illustrate that they have new thought leadership. They have a better understanding of the situation. And so therefore they can connect the dots to, if you've gotten us this far without us buying from you, I think it probably makes sense that you're going to take us the rest of the way. So illustrate progress. The next one is parachute. If something goes wrong, you got to have their back. And we do this through warranties or guarantees or insurance, things like that. And this kind of a guarantee, especially if you're new to the marketplace, has to be extraordinary. For example, I tell you what, if it doesn't work out the way that we told you and you install it the way that we suggested, then we'll rip it out if it doesn't work. And we're going to hire a consultant to come in and figure out how to fix your problem. And we're going to pay for that consultant, and we're going to replace it with something that does get the job done. That's how sure we are that we're going to take care of you. Now, that should scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, because I got no way to go, but okay.
Right. But on the other side of that, that's the fear that a customer feels.
Right.
If they're buying from you naked. So you've got to be able to give them that parachute so that you've got their back. So if something goes wrong, it doesn't impact their career. Keep in mind, this is a career decision. Every time they buy something from you, it's a career decision.
That's what a lot of people miss. They're talking about themselves getting a deal versus thinking that by their decisions, they're actually pushing themselves up the food chain. A lot of people miss that, man.
They do. Huge numbers of people miss that. And the thing that people have to keep in mind, people all the time ask me, Mark, how can I beat my competition? And they're asking the wrong question.
That's right.
The question is, how can I beat my customers, beat their competition? And when I do that, I have no competition.
I agree with you. You had one more?
Indeed. Indeed. And I got to remember it. So let me just do a quick search and pull up my notes on.
Well, I'll tell you what, while you're doing that, let me ask you another question.
Indeed.
I'll move this forward here. When I talk to most business executives, the number one thing they want is more deals, more customers, more sales. So we all think we know the answer to this, but I want to hear your answer to that. Why?
Well, the fundamental reason why is because it's a complex answer. When I work with executives, and I've been working with executives for 28 years in education and coaching and projects and all those kinds of interesting things, the number one thing that I see is there's a fundamental problem from the bottom of the organization to the top of the organization with a relationship with, get this, money.
Okay, I'll follow along. Break that out for us, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why is either the salespeople selling it don't believe that the product is worth it. And so they undersell it and they don't make enough profit. They don't make enough margin. They offer a discount to get a deal. In the world of high consideration, a discount is not expected. It's negotiated. In low consideration, it's part of the deal. Discounts just part of what we do. Right. A good example of that is Apple. Have you ever seen an Apple product on sale?
Or a coupon for one? No.
Never. Never will.
No.
It's a completely different strategy. And if it is on sale, it's a knockoff. That's right. And you know it. And if we've established that what most of us are selling is high consideration, you going in there and offering a deal means you're using a technology of selling that was invented in 1868 by John Patterson of the National Cash Register Corporation. And he created this book of sales arguments, 16 pages, and it was so effective it became the holy grail of selling. Well, he was selling a relatively simple concept, a cash register instead of a cigar box to keep your money in, something that would mechanically record the sales versus a scrap of butcher paper and a piece of pencil and a pencil. And there was only one person that had to say yes, and they didn't have to report to anybody, the shopkeeper. And we're still using the same methodology to sell high consideration products where there's lots of people involved and there's lots of risk. And for that reason, we've got to stop the pitching. We've got to stop telling people what the value is because we're mapping the value props to their motivation. And that doesn't work, especially when we have multiple people involved with a different motivation set. So instead, what we have to do is figure out the motivation of each of the individual people involved that have to say yes and then supply them with what they need to satisfy their motivation. And that's part of how we have to change this up. So part of it is we're making the wrong approach. Part of it is that we're not talking about value correctly. And part of it is that we're focused on the wrong thing, which is our product. not on the satisfying the customer's need, creating extreme value for our customers.
So true. And so many people don't listen. They just want to tell you about it, and it's not the right way to do it. You have to communicate and find out what it is that they want. Give them a chance to talk. I'm on the same page with you. You're preaching to the choir. Here's the next question I have for you.
All right.
In that process, you say you're talking about a high consideration. Its sales process is longer. How do you speed that process up to be able to effectively get to the end goal without losing sight along the way? Because the long sales process, sometimes it just drops off.
Well, it is. Sometimes it does. And part of the thing is just keep making sure that you understand this is not as a sales process or sales cycle. It's actually a consideration cycle. So what we have to do is, first of all, understand the motivation of each player. And we do that through a series of questions. And every player has a specific objective. It's the reason why they're hired. So, for example, the CEO, their objective is shareholder value, usually illustrated through profit and growth. So I've got to do everything I can to show them that what I'm offering is going to improve their profit, it's going to improve their growth, it's going to improve their shareholder value. It's going to reduce their risk. And if I don't cover those things, CEO is going to say, not going to happen.
Right.
So for the CFO, what I have to do is help them support cash flow and compliance. Now, the funny thing is, most people think that what CFOs want is ROI, return on investment. And well, that's nice. Nobody gets fired for missing an ROI number, but they do get fired for missing a cash flow prediction, along with everybody else in the company. And if you don't hit the compliance, the government regulations, Sarbanes-Oxley, if you're public, you can go to jail. In fact, the reality is today, to a CFO, ROI stands for risk of incarceration.
That's good.
Yeah, you're welcome. You can use that. They tell me they don't look good in orange. and so most people come in with the wrong pitch. They talk about the lifetime value, the total operating cost of a product, the TCO, the total cost, right, of operation. Then they talk about ROI, when the reality is if you can show a CFO how they can improve their cash flow, man, you're the best friend. Because improved cash flows means they don't have to go to the bank. It means that they don't have to bring in additional sales. It means that they can handle a lot of different things. Or whoever else you're talking to in the organization, whether it's marketing, which means more customer flow, more deal flow, sales, it means faster deals. Manufacturing means lower cost, higher efficiency. IT, it means less downtime. Each of these people has a different view of value, and we got to nail that first. That's their objective. It's why they're in the job. So once we understand their objective, then we can go to their priorities. Their priorities are the order in which they will achieve their objectives. And priorities and objectives are set by their scorekeeper. So we got to understand how the person we're speaking to, how we're selling to, is how their score is kept. And I've got to do everything I can to make sure the scorekeeper sees them as winning. When I can do that, baby, I can sell fast. And then the last thing I got to figure out is their criteria, which is what creates value for them. How are they going to choose? And I can uncover each of these three areas with a series of questions. There's criteria questions, there's objective questions, there's priority questions. And I got to ask them in the order of objective, priority, criteria. Now, the challenge is that most salespeople start off with criteria. They start off with a how. How are you going to do this? And what we have to start off with is the what are you planning on doing? What do you need to accomplish, and why do you have to accomplish it? That's objective. That's strategy. And the moment you get out of what and why questions, you are not in talking strategy anymore. And then next thing we have to figure out is that priority, which is sequence. In what order are you going to get this stuff done? Okay, that's when and where. And then once we understand those two things, then we can talk about how and who. And that's where we plug into the equation. And when you do that, your sales are going to happen as fast as humanly possible.
Great education here. Let's move forward. I'm going to have you back again. We're going to drill down into these. Closing more business. How does someone go? As a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's put a pause on this for now, and I want to have you come back, and we'll do another series of other questions that I've got going. How about that? You bet. I'm delighted to do this. You know, I can go for weeks. I got so much content. I've written 14 books, got 15, 16, and 17 in the queue. I got lots of good stuff, and I'm delighted to share it because we have to change the way we go to market. We are, together. All right. Indeed. You've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Don't forget, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.